Today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k. America's pension crisis is getting worse. I'm going to be covering several different articles, all dealing with the ongoing pension crisis we're experiencing here in America and what is to come. And so we're only 4 days into the new year, and already we have news about countries deciding to remove themselves or rethink the dollar, or aka dump the dollar. President Erdogan in Turkey tells his citizens in order to help the country out, it'd be in your best interest to go under your pillow, grab the dollars, the euros, and gold. And as you tell them today's title, how the baby boomers will lose their retirement nest egg, I want to share with you a couple thoughts as well as some articles on how the next market correction will be catastrophic for a lot of people. Always cash crisis worse. About Venezuela once again. Systemic important banks. They removed the 1,000 thing on there called monetary awareness.
All right, little RTD news update midday or end of the workday for the most part. Wanted to check in and share a couple articles of some stories that caught my attention that I thought was worthy of bringing to your attention. And it happens to be with all the scramble that's going on to get these loans out. And just imagine all this stuff is put together last minute in a way to present that there is a way of bringing some calm and some ease to this current meltdown. But think about the fact when stuff is rushed to put together and is rushed to be put out there, there's no accountability to any of it. Therefore, there's going to be an abuse of all this, as well as a squandering of billions upon billions of dollars. And to the point of that, President Trump this weekend tweeted about the need for more of this PPP, or this payment process loan, whatever it's called. So we're going to dive into that today. And so I want to just check in and get your thoughts on a variety of subject matter as well. And hopefully you guys had a chance to join me earlier for that interview with Craig Hemke. And definitely was a great discussion there. And so let me check in via chat and acknowledge a couple people for taking time to join me. And then we'll get into it. And so it's, we got Spirit King, we got Excalibur, we got Gary D, we got Pabar, we got Journey Moore, says yo Mike, we got Dreadhead Locks, what's up Mike, we got Eddie, Spirit King, it says grocery workers are starting to die and people taking hydrochloroquine are testing positive for COVID-19 after 1 week of treatment or dying. That's definitely interesting news there. So we can definitely touch on that as well, Spirit, if you got some thoughts you want to share. It says Kenneth Gibson, Joe Barr, Brian Mills. Okay, we got a couple people tuning in. So appreciate you guys for joining. And so what I want to do, I want to start this one off here by encouraging you, for those that are tuning in, if you have not, make sure you guys go check out the video I did earlier. If you find it of value, share that so more people can find out what's going on, because as a result of all this panic and chaos going on in the health realm as well as the financial realm, central banks and governments are about to do some things that we could have never imagined. And it's going to just reflect in the currency they're going to create, which is basically, robbing you dry if you're solely dependent upon fiat currencies as your beginning and end, because they will be your greatest financial liability. It's just how it is. And so also for those that are watching this, as you guys see here, there's a couple social media links that I want to encourage you guys to go follow me on. And then I want to point you back to the one I'm trying to get people to really take a notice of. And this happens to be the actual RTD chat. And so if you go to rethinkingthedollar.com, scroll to the top, register, log in. So I got, a good couple of the members here that share articles or whatnot throughout the day. So it's a good way for us to connect outside of the live stream. So definitely take advantage of that. And that'll be a way for us to stay connected, as well as for you to share stories that you want other people to see with the community. And so let me see who else is joining us, and then we'll get started. Tony Blaylock, how you doing, my friend? We got Joshua Parker. It says, politically speaking, we're probably in the most dangerous of all scenarios. With this unemployment, wages will lower them further, and the right wing might win and enslave us all. Spirit, you're not holding anything back, my friend. And that is the likely scenario of how things will play out, barring some type of miraculous divine intervention or something of that nature. That might be the course of action that is given to us. Therefore, we have to, figure out how we're going to respond to it. So that is what is going on. And so let me get into the first article. And so this past Friday was the kickoff for the small loans that were touted as being a way of keeping things operational while we work our way through this crisis. And there's an article here that caught my attention. And I have about about 6 or 7 articles I'm going to skim through and just give you something off the surface, get your thoughts on it, and as well as share my little 2 cents. And so I'll start with the very first article here, and I'll put it in the chat so you guys can take a look for yourselves if you are interested in diving in further. But the subject heading caught my attention as well as just a little bit at the top. And it says, experts warn about big dollar fraud in the $2.2 trillion relief package. And so I've always think about all the prior emergency measures that have been thrown out there in dire need of trying to present the illusion that the government is doing something to, help ease or calm the storm or whatever. But you think about it, the last one I remember was a part of the QE packages and the TARP and all that stuff like that, which was debt brought into existence, money borrowed from the Federal Reserve for future taxpayers to have to pay. But then the funds were given. I think it was the energy deal. I'm not sure the part of the programs, but billions of dollars was given to wind farms and solar power and all that stuff like that. But I remember hearing after the fact that all those companies took those funds and ran with it and produced no energy whatsoever. Then we have the cash for clunkers, the idea of giving people funds for cars while getting rid of cars that are still usable, like just squandering of funds. And my thought is like, wow, what's going to happen with this current $2.2 trillion, especially the fact that President Trump is already talking about needing more. And according to some articles here, there's already some glitches in the system. And so it's just a matter of time before we look back and hear about all these billions of dollars that were presented as being for small businesses. But the banks that were in charge of lending them out, they probably already use those funds for their own uses. So the money or the currency will not even make its way into the small business owner hands. Then you factor in, depending on what line of work you're in, are you willing to take on debt to employ people that still can't come to work for you in hopes of being that debt being forgiven, as far as this, the fact that after 90 days or so, they're going to forgive the debt. Like, what sense does that make? So there's more to the story than we're being told. But I just want to touch on a couple things here and get your thoughts here. And so it says the size of this unprecedented relief package and the scale of spending and the number of businesses eligible for funds will make it difficult to verify the information from each applicant and how they plan to use their funds. It says with roughly 10 million Americans filing jobless claims over the last 2 weeks, millions of small businesses seeking government aid to stay afloat, the need for government to immediately push out money or currency to Americans in a stagnant economy could hinder efforts to filter out efforts from potential fraudsters to seek relief funds. So because this past Friday, the banks were given charge of issuing this currency out, we all know that the banks are the primary reason for all this in the first place, but they've been entrusted to be able to distribute funds to small businesses when the question is going to be brought up is how do we know those businesses actually need the loans, and how do we know what they're actually going to do with the loans? Because keep in mind, as of now, the unemployment stuff is still in play. So a good portion of that 2.2 billion, 350 billion is allocated towards small businesses, and then another portion is allocated towards unemployment. So if they've already filed for unemployment, therefore they're going to be getting some relief from their states through unemployment insurance. But then you got the small businesses is also supposed to keep payroll as well. So is that, a little bit double dipping? Like you got the states funding them as well as the businesses on the hook. So like, how does that work out? And that's the big question, because there's no time frame, there's no framework to better explain that, so people can actually know who pays what, who doesn't get double paid, and does the funds actually make it. So my first guess is that the small business loans that will be given will not actually make it to majority of the small businesses. It'll stay in the hands of the banks, and therefore the uninsurance will kick in like it's supposed to. So this small business loan is one big cover up, if you look at it from that way. But it says they see the $350 billion in funding earmarked for small businesses in the form of forgivable loans as particularly susceptible to abuse. It says millions of small business owners began applying to the banks for loans this past Friday. It says though many applicants and lenders experienced problems with programs rollout. And so here we have trouble. So yeah, TARP. So part of the the TARP program from years and years ago was the same situation. But so this article lays the foundation to what I'm trying to get into. And so before I move further, let me check back in with the chat to see what thoughts you guys might have towards this. Just highlight at Rethinking a Dollar, and I'll definitely try to get to it. And so I see Mike says, this health scare is the perfect catalyst to go fully digital with all currencies. Old Man Army 69, 100%. That's a part of the narrative. Expect some type of cashless push or cashless announcement within the next 4 months, in my opinion. It says the banks and politicians are friends. Police too. TV says checks in the mail. Confirm and obey friend. Johnny B. Dank. We're being told that within 2 weeks the checks will be sent to us, but Steve Mnuchin last week said that they will prefer not to actually have to send physical checks. So they're going to try their best to make sure they're directly deposited, and they're going to use the IRS tax payment method. The same way you file taxes, they're going to try to reverse it back to you in that method. And Steve Mnuchin said that he will do his best to have it in 2 weeks. But yet, once again, this is all a last-minute ditch effort to try to appease the people first while all this stuff on the back end is crumbling. So I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath towards getting something in 2 weeks if you're expecting it. So just, I would say, don't get your hopes up. It says, what else here? It says Spain implemented UBI, Feather Crown King. I saw that. It looks like Spain will be instituting universal basic income as their relief form. So every government has their own plan of attack, and it's all relatively same. Borrow, create, send to the public, inflate. That's all they can do, unfortunately. All right, so let me keep going and get back to the next article here. So this is what really caught me by surprise when I saw this tweet from the president. And so this was on Saturday. And so around 11 o'clock on Saturday, President Trump says, I will immediately ask Congress for more currency to support small businesses under the PPP loan if this is what caught me, if the allocated money runs out. And so I would imagine between unemployment insurance being increased significantly and the PPP loan, let me actually, I forgot the definition, the Paycheck Protection Program loan, the Paycheck Protection Program loan. It's not even a loan because they're going to forgive it. But anyway, if it runs out, he's already prepared to ask for more. And so I would imagine that if it was intended for it to actually be of value, that there should be more, a better release of the funds into the hands, not giving it to the banks or allowing the banks to issue those loans and and profit off of those loans, might I add, and then to put it into people's hands. Because once again, how can you trust the people that run the system for their benefit to actually do what they're supposed to do? We can't. But anyway, it says if the allocated money runs out, so far, way ahead of schedule, Bank of America and community banks are rocking. So this is as of Saturday. Okay. Now, the next article. This is from Zero Hedge. Take it for what it's worth. This was as of today. It says millions of applicants, but only 100 loans dispersed in small business bailout shock. So take it for what you want. The source for this came from a guy who's in the financial realm. But I wouldn't be so far out there to say that this type of stuff, is probably likely, given the fact that it's now 72 hours since this program has been released. How do you determine who needs it, who doesn't need it? And how do you determine the business are even real? And all those things that should go into qualifying people if they really need loans. But it would be great, in my personal opinion, is that if they would just let these businesses bear the responsibility of their own lack of proper management of their own funds, small business and all. Like if you're a business operating and common sense should tell you there's going to come a slow day or a slow time period, it should be your responsibility to have some savings set aside for that time frame, not wait upon the government and then, scream for a bailout. So this is how I know it's not about small businesses, because this is about big corporations, of course, now. It was the banks in 2008, big corporations now in the disguise of small business loans. Anyway, okay, get beyond myself. Okay, so here's something I want to scroll down to the bottom. I'll put this in the chat if anybody wants to go read more for themselves, but I just want to skim the surface as I always mention. All right. So it says here, in a phone interview on CNBC, Wilfred Frost urgently reported that the Bank of America had received 177,000 applications for some $32.6 billion in emergency liquidity, but so far only 100 of these loans have been dispersed. So I'm assuming Wilfred Frost got inside information, but if this is even near correct, 177,000 people have requested for funds of different amounts. I don't know what the amounts would be or anything like that, but apparently only 100. So my question twofold is, what was the criteria for these loans? Is it just the fact my doors are closed? I'm impacted by this. You just, 10 question survey, doors closed, employees at home, inventory is low. I owe, mortgage, rent, I qualify. Or are these 100 loans that have been dispersed so far probably a part of the bigger scale of corporations? What's the criteria between small and big? I'm sure they haven't given us that information, but I'd imagine, just first guess, this 100, if this 100 is true, happen to be some of the very same corporations that might be publicly traded companies that are not necessarily small in nature. And they are the ones that are the friends of Bank of America, or they're direct shareholders in such and such company. And, they're the friends. So Bank of America has probably let their friends get some of that $32.6 billion first, would be my guess. But it says the bank hopes to get most of the stack processed by midweek. So how do you get half of 177,000 processed by midweek? Like, what's the staff looking like if everybody's at home? The banks have been laying off and downsizing for the last 2 years now, but will they have the manpower to actually get through 177,000? And this is just Bank of America here. So all things that we should question, but it just plays into the fact that there's going to be more questions as to where all the funds went. At the same time that President Trump is already saying if the funds run out, he's going to go back for more. So can you say 350 squandered and another 350 is going to be brought into existence? And who's getting these funds? I'd imagine it's not small business owners that might need them, but due to the nature of what I believe would work best, is just letting the free market activity run its course. Competition is something else. I mean, if you're not made to cut it in these type of environments due to the fact you didn't prepare, should the government step in with forgivable loans? I don't think so, but that's just my 2 cents. I'm going to let that ride and let you guys do what you do with it. So I'm going to put this in the chat as well for those that might want to take a look at it if I haven't. I already put it in the chat. Okay, so let me check in via chat real quick and get your guys' thoughts on where we're at so far and go from there. So it says the criteria is simple. If you do not need it, you can get it. Or if you're well connected, you get it. Jay, I'm sure that's how it works. It's probably a 2-question form to fill out. It says they fire you, then then you have to file for unemployment after the timing will offer you a loan to start your business back up after you lost everything. Is that right? Tony, that got me backwards right there. I don't know what's going on with that one. It says, remember the minimum wage debates where many say $15 an hour is too much. Well, $1,200 is 2 weeks pay at $15 an hour. Spirit. Some good math there. So that's another thing. The fight for 15. I wonder. I remember beginning of 2018, talking about the fight for 15, like how there would be no way in what's coming, referring to the next official recession, that $15 an hour would be able to be sustained by employers when they themselves were running into debt issues. And I was like, people, if they only knew what they were asking for, they were asking to be laid off early, like we saw last year with the automobile sector, not because of the wages, but because of course, the demand for higher wages, more pay, more benefits, more all that stuff, not realizing that the economy is not cut for that. We're at the end of a 100-year debt cycle from the Federal Reserve System. And, at this point now, it's about get what you can out of the system while it's still a system to get from. Oh, man, I get a little winded there. Okay, so let me keep it going. Anyone ever think that this man flew actually at the radiation from Charles? Oh, man, the whole Fukushima stuff, that's a whole nother ball game there. Why should it be a loan when the government is shutting everything down? El Monte, great question. That's another great point. How can you extend a loan when we're being told to stay at home, to slow the spread type of thing? So it went from 15 to 30 days. Next is going to be 60 days, which is going to take us into the end of July, give or take. And at that point, the scramble will still be on because you can't give businesses small loans to keep people employed and they still not be able to do any type of business operations because there's no manpower. Manpower is at home. You can't bring back employees, but you're expected to still pay them. That just makes absolutely no sense, but it's to be expected. And so here's another thing I'm going to transition into is here's a sad reality. So we're only in the 6th day of the month of April, and this April, in my opinion, it will be the catalyst for the official revealing of this greater depression that we're in, because just think about this as a part of this slow the spread concept and social or physical distancing concept that forces people to remove themselves out of anything labeled as activity or labor in and of itself. And so here's the next article I want to touch on, and I think the subject heading, it kind of plays into the obvious. It says, how high will the unemployment rate rise in April? And so the answer to that, I can sum it up. This is from Mish Talk. I can sum this up real quick by saying the unemployment rate will rise as high in proportion to or in proportion to how long this physical distance remains in play, because the stuff labeled essential will be further redefined real soon. So there's going to be more businesses that's not considered essential closing. And therefore, the numbers will continue to grow week by week as we distance ourselves from working as well as activity in general. So to sum this up, unemployment rate will rise to the same level, to the same number of the people that stay at home and not out there working, which will be, the workforce is 150 million people. Everyone out of the 150 is not essential. Maybe 20 million, just a ballpark figure, if you look at all the different sectors of employment, might be considered essential. And they're going to be the first line, firemen, food, grocery stores. Everybody else, you're going to ask yourself, will they necessarily be labeled essential when they further redefine what essential is? So therefore, that's going to be more than half the working population is going to be at home. So unemployment rates will equate to the same amount of people at home. 80% of the working class, put it like that. So if this remains the way that it does, which I think it will for the foreseeable couple months, possibly, think about all the packages and all the loans they're going to have to issue. So it makes this first small business loan, which is designed to go until September, I heard, of no effect because they're going to be forgiven this, but then they're still going to need more in order to keep their doors open. So the point is, there should close the doors. If your company is not essential, if what you're doing now is not something that can sustain itself, close it. Tough luck, type of thing, which would be best other than raking up the national debt. But I know that's all how they do it. So here's an article with some graphs here that lays more into the case that, I assure Mish sees the unemployment rate going a lot higher as well, according to the numbers. And so I'll let you guys dive into that if you are interested. And then we'll check back into the chat for a minute. But got about 3 or 4 more articles, then we're going to dial back. Just wanted to present some stuff to you guys. And let me see here. Got a question here. It says, expect a new war soon so that Trump can draft people and thus reduce the apparent unemployment rate. Whew. Yeah, so I saw that just was a couple days ago, over the weekend, there was a bombing. There was an attack. I think it was in Somalia against one of the terrorist groups that we've been fighting for the last 20 years. I think so. I'll verify that, but I saw that and heading somewhere. But yet we could see, how would Christ deal with this? Murray Cross. How would Christ deal with this? Man, that's hard to figure out because, we have an omnipotent, all-knowing individual that is the owner and creator of everything. All this on the surface is evil in nature. And so, what would Jesus do? I don't know. It's hard, man. I know definitely he wouldn't be concerned or stressed about all this because all this stuff we're talking about now is just natural events that are part of the timeline to get us towards the end, which we all know if you're a believer how this ends. But of course, there's nothing to fear or nothing to be panicked about, because there's two different worlds, and this is off subject, but there's two different worlds. There's a natural, then there's the invisible, the spiritual realm. In the spiritual realm right now, in my opinion, which is his governing body, which is a kingdom. His kingdom is doing well right now. There's no recession in heaven. So, I mean, he's not concerned about this. It's just his children is caught up in this mess, and they're confused and looking for answers. So, of course, he would definitely say, be of good courage. I've overcome the world, and so will you, if you believe. So, anyway, just had to put that little stuff in there. Anyway, keep it moving right along. Don't want to be too long. Okay, so here is another interesting article here. Just the title alone should just make you wonder. It says Howard Schultz warns 30%. Oh my goodness. Top of it says Dow soars 1,600 points as growth rate of new health scare cases appear to slow. So the Dow grew 1,600 points on a Monday. Can you say false hopes setting you up for a mighty fall? But anyway, that was just interesting. 1,600 points in a day. That lets you know something's wrong. Howard Schultz warns 30% of small businesses at risk of closing for good without more help. Now, the question I want to put out there to you guys, is this a bad thing? Like, is 30% of businesses closing a bad thing? That's a way of weeding out businesses that are meant to stay in business through tough times and businesses that should not be open in the first place. So 30% of this business, small or big, let's just see what you're made of right now. Let's see if what you're offering in the form of a service or value to this system is worthy of people to put their currency into your pockets. If not, you deserve to be out of business, is in my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just me. But here's more information here. But I'm not shocked or really mad at the fact that 30% of businesses may not open up again. That's how, in a free market, just, competition and, in a what used to be capitalist style society, sink or swim. If you're swimming, you're good. If you don't swim, you sink it. So that's just my 2 cents there. But I thought that was something to share, because here we have what looks like it's a save everything at all costs, save all businesses at small costs, because they're the employers of the population. It's a tough pill to swallow, but you gotta let stuff sink, man. It's unfortunate, but yet it only make us stronger if we bear the pain in its fullest extent now, because we'll learn from it. We'll learn what businesses work, what did not work, how to improve, how to improvise. We need creative individuals right now to come up with better ways of getting stuff done. And if this businesses that don't cut it, that's just how it goes. That's how it's supposed to go. But anyway, I'll leave that alone. Next article here. It says, this is something interesting, and this I think plays into what could be coming as a part of this next monetary order. It says White House considering U.S. Treasury bond, health scare bonds, the Cutlow is referring to. And so this was brought up on the live stream this past weekend from Mr. Bitcoin Ben, and him referencing that a bond was coming. And then my question to him is, what would that bond be denominated in? Will this be a treasury getting back into the currency game, or presenting that digital dollar and giving something out to the public as a derivative of this bond that they're going to put out there, as if once again, borrowing at this current moment is something that the world would even be able to consider buying. So, no one's going to buy these bonds apart from the institutions that have to by law. But as a derivative of these bonds, I can see the Treasury getting back into the game, issuing the digital currency, because that's going to be the new system. And this next universal basic income, which is coming from our government, will probably be denominated through the Treasury in the form of a digital payment through some app. And this could be a part of the plan that we're witnessing here. So I thought I would share this because it's a small article here. But just when they throw out these little hints, I can only help but to read into them as to what could be. And so the Treasury could get back into the currency issuance game, but in digital form. So be on the lookout for that e-dollar coming to an app near you. So I'll share this in the chat if anybody's interested in finding out a little bit more for themselves. And so I'm gonna run through these next two real quick. And so here we have says Jamie Dimon warns of the coming bad recession, repeat of 2008 crisis in his annual letter. So here's a little letter here if you guys have interest in finding out more about it. But this apparently went out and he give you some graphs, some stats. But when you have Jamie Dimon, one of the leader of the too big to fail banking system, coming out saying that it's going to be bad as 2008, expected to be worse. So I'll put this in the chat and you can listen to some commentators, share their thoughts, but it just plays into more of what's happening. This could either be considered, fear mongering news or like, oh, you're trying to scare people, or just give you insight as to what the insiders are giving themselves and their investors. So something worth thinking about. It says, if they do, I'm taking my money and move overseas. Lance, I think there will no there, and this is worst case scenario. My personal opinion, I've been thinking about this a lot. Because of this health scare, it's going to be overblown like never before. I've watched the little David Icke program that's no longer on YouTube a minute ago, but everything's going to fall under. Every health scare is going to fall under the narrative of this current health pandemic. And therefore, we may not be able to travel freely, especially internationally, unless we have been vaccinated. That's the sad reality. And so barring some type of divine intervention or some type of miraculous uprooting of this current structure that we're being pushed into, I'd imagine once all this blows over, because of the scare of getting back to what will be a new norm, sporting events, social interaction, all that stuff like that is going to be different. And it's going to be very uncomfortable at first because people will look at each other in a very suspicious way as to whether or not they were vaccinated or not. And so they're going to try to pump up the need for everybody to get a shot of some kind. That's the goal. And so if you don't get it, you will not be able to travel internationally, more than likely, because you're probably the new passports, the real IDs coming out as a result of this will say whether or not you took the vaccine or not. And if you don't have it on there, you're going to be an outcast type of thing. That's just where I think this could head. But we can talk more about that later. And so the very last one here plays into what I'm talking about. And so here is a video presentation from James Bullard, the president and CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. And the title of it says, Top Fed official says universal health scare testing needed to reopen the economy. So it's a little 6-minute clip. I got through half of it, but the title itself lets me know what they want as a whole for you and me. It's that why would we all need to be tested? Why would we need to verify whether you're a carrier or not? You'll know if you're a carrier eventually. If it was that, if your immune system was that compromised, you'll know because it'll show. So why should everyone get tested unless the goal is to have you tested, put in their database system so that when they stuff blows through, they know who got tested, who got vaccinated, who didn't. And then you won't be able to do all that other stuff on top because you didn't get those 1, 2, 3, 4 done. So that is all I had to say. But everybody, I wanted to just share my thoughts, share some news stories, let you guys do what you do with it. And if you find it of importance, definitely share it. I'll put it in the chat here. But this is what's happening in the news. This is some of the top headlines. We read through some of the hot air and dissected it and just gave it to you in more realistic terms of what they want to do, how they want to get it done. Now, question is, how do we respond? And what does the good Lord have for us in store? So definitely this is a time that we should all unite and pray like never before if you're a believer. And just trust that ultimately, at the end of the day, all this will work itself out. And so that's one of the things that keeps me in good spirits about it, is because none of this is new to God. So I'm excited for what he's going to do through this, because he's going to get the glory regardless. And he will definitely be glorified however this plays out. But that is all she wrote for this news update. Take the articles, share them, read them, do what you got to do with them. If you found this video of any use, of any value, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Share this on your social medias. And then also, to take it back to you guys, if you have not yet, once we get done here, go to rethinkingthedollar.com and register for the little chat room there so we can stay connected there in case YouTube takes me off or whatever. Hopefully, I'll still be able to use my own service with this. And you can join the community and share articles, share videos, and just share your commentary. If you're a content creator, share your stuff on the chat, and we'll definitely get a chance to see it. But other than that, that is all she wrote. If you found this informative, share it, like it. And if you want to be a blessing to the channel and the contact and things like that, consider being a Patreon member. Information is down below. And I'm going to leave you with this one. Be blessed. See you guys later tonight.
Hey there, sorry for this interruption, but I wanted to bring something to your attention. If you've been enjoying this live stream, why don't you partner with me and be a support to the channel via Patreon membership for just a minimum of $5 a month. All you have to do is scroll down beneath this video here, click the Patreon link, then consider donating as little as $5 a month towards the channel. A little bit of crumbs can go a long way, and I appreciate your support. Now, let's get back to this live stream. Hey there, hope all is well. Back at you today with some more RTD News updates. And as you can tell from today's title, Congress is coming after your 401k.